In 1927, a group of the most brilliant physicists in history gathered in Brussels. Einstein was there, Bohr was there, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, Pauli. They were arguing about something that had broken their field open. The problem was this: when you observe a particle, when you measure it, it changes. Not because your instrument disturbed it, but because observation itself appears to be part of what makes reality real. The observer, they were forced to conclude, cannot be cleanly separated from what it observes. That meeting is called the Solvay Conference. It's one of the most famous moments in the history of science. And 400 years earlier, alone in a room in Milan, Leonardo da Vinci had written down the same problem. In different words, from a different direction, but the same wall. We've spent 2 episodes on what Leonardo didn't write. Now let's look at what he did. In his notebooks on optics, the ones where he traces light through the eye into the brain, he arrives at a specific impasse. He can describe the entire mechanical path of vision: pupil, lens, retina, optic nerve. He maps it with surgical precision. And then he writes something that stopped researchers cold when they translated it properly. He writes that the eye does not receive the world, it constructs it. In his Manuscript D, dedicated entirely to optics and the eye, Leonardo distinguishes between the physical apparatus of vision and what he calls the senso comune, the common sense, a faculty he locates not in the eye but somewhere deeper. He writes that this faculty is what transforms light into meaning, and he could not find it anatomically. He dissected human eyes. He dissected ox eyes. He built glass models of the lens to trace exactly how light bends. And every time, he arrived at the same threshold. The light enters. Something receives it. And that something, whatever it is not physical. He called it the soul. Modern physics calls it the observer. I'm not saying those are the same thing. I'm saying they're pointing at the same gap. Here's where it gets strange. The problem Leonardo hit, the observer problem, didn't just appear in quantum physics. It appeared in neuroscience, in philosophy of mind, in information theory. Every time a field of inquiry follows the chain of causation far enough back through the mechanism, it hits the same wall. You can trace the signal. You can map every step. And then, at the very end, there is something doing the experiencing. And that something doesn't show up in the map. This problem now has a name in philosophy of mind: the hard problem of consciousness, coined by David Chalmers in 1995. It is considered unsolved. It is, structurally, the same problem Leonardo hit in 1508 while dissecting eyes in a Milanese hospital. He simply didn't have the vocabulary for it yet. If the most advanced fields of human inquiry keep arriving at the same wall, 5 centuries apart, using entirely different methods, what does that tell us about the wall itself? Now, the mirror writing. We said in the last episode that the official explanation, left-handedness, has never been fully verified. Here's what we know. Leonardo could write normally. There are documents in his hand written left to right, for official correspondence and contracts. He switched to mirror script specifically for his private notebooks. Several of Leonardo's letters and legal documents survive in standard left-to-right script. The mirror writing appears almost exclusively in his personal research notebooks. This means the mirror script was a deliberate choice for private material, not a physical necessity. What was private? The observations about the soul. The notes on the observer. The fragments where he pushes past mechanism into something he doesn't name cleanly. I'm not saying he was hiding it from authorities. The church wasn't hunting optics researchers in Milan. I'm saying something else. Maybe he was writing for someone specific. Someone who would come later. Someone who would know what they were looking at. Someone with the vocabulary he didn't have yet. Go back to the deathbed. He said he failed, that he hadn't done enough. that his work was incomplete. We assumed that meant the paintings, the machines, the commissions he abandoned. But what if it didn't? What if the failure he was mourning had nothing to do with art or engineering? What if he spent 50 years trying to find the observer, the thing behind the eye, the thing that turns light into experience, and never found it? Not because he wasn't looking hard enough, but because it isn't the kind of thing that can be found by looking. The figures who pursued the same question, the boundary between mechanism and consciousness, between physics and experience, almost all arrived at the same conclusion. You cannot find the observer by observing. The instrument and the thing it's searching for are the same thing. Leonardo spent his life building the most precise instrument of observation in history: his eye, his mind, his notebooks. And the one thing that instrument could never turn itself toward, clearly, completely, with the precision he demanded, was itself. Leonardo da Vinci is not just a historical figure. He's a data point. One of the most rigorous minds in human history, working from pure observation, with no mystical tradition guiding him, no framework to fall into, arriving at the same place as the Vedantic philosophers, the quantum physicists, the mystics, and the neuroscientists. The observer is not outside the system. The observer is the system looking at itself. He said he wasted his life, a man who got further than almost anyone, and still couldn't reach what he was reaching for. Maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's what the edge of something real looks like. You can't find the eye with the eye. He knew that, at the end. The question is whether we're willing to follow that thread, past what can be measured, past what can be painted, past what can be written down in any direction, to wherever it actually leads.